And with that, we're going to kick off with our very first set of lightning talks.
So please welcome Kenneth Sharp.
So when you work as a software developer at Stanford, you sometimes get to work on projects that expand the field of human knowledge in the world. This was not one of those projects, but even something as mundane as room reservation can offer interesting challenges when it comes to systems integration and user experience. Stanford Earth has historically used a number of different applications and methods to track its bookable resources like rooms and vehicles. When we decided it was time to upgrade everything to a common platform, it was very strongly suggested that we use 25 Live. 25 Live is a cloud-based reservation system from CollegeNet. It was adopted by the Registrar's Office to manage university classrooms. It's in fairly wide use around the university. I believe there's a university-wide license to use it. Thanks, by the way, to Serra in the Registrar's Office, who helped us get up to speed with room configurations and training, and I'm sure she'd be happy to do the same for any of you. So 25 Live is very powerful with lots of options and features, which is great if you're doing complex reservations, but not so great if you just occasionally need to go in and book a room. It really requires some training to use it effectively, and I'm just going through like about a dozen forms that one might see to do a simple reservation. There's also complicated security and workflow configurations that make it hard to meet some of the specific requirements that we had for our departments. So we're dealing with 5 different types of rooms and vehicles. Each one of them, according to department, has its own set of rules in terms of who can book the room for how long, what the blackout constraints might be, who needs to approve the room, or whether it doesn't need approval at all. We decided it wasn't really practical to have everybody at Stanford Earth use 25 Live, and we decided that our admin staff would get trained and would know how to use it, and then we needed to figure out a way to let other people do quick bookings. So there is an API. It's the 25 Live Web Services API. It's RESTful, XML-based. It's very fully functional, and it turned out to be an enormously useful tool for developing a solution. So our solution included the 25 Live application itself as sort of a reservations engine in the background with the room configurations and availability, and also to use for complex bookings. And then we use Drupal as the front end for pages, forms, roles and permissions, and all that common web application stuff. And then the 25 Live Services API is the glue. And we're also using Full Calendar, which is a very nice JavaScript library that will provide an interactive calendar that you can configure in a lot of different ways. So what we end up with is an application that anyone at Stanford Earth can log into. They can look at any of the rooms, they can choose an open slot on the calendar, submit the form, and then get an immediate response as to whether their reservation is confirmed or whether it's tentative. And if it's tentative, a message goes to the appropriate room administrator, who can then approve or cancel the request. And we can see some of the workflow here. The Drupal module will make a request using the events XML call to the 25 Live API, and then it will convert the resulting XML to JSON, pass that on to Full Calendar, and that will then get displayed. Somebody then can click on the calendar, and there's some jQuery that populates the form. The room description block at the top and the form itself are configured by calls to 25 Live and then using the Drupal APIs to output those. And then clicking reserve sends the proper XML to 25 Live to book the room. So I'm going to propose a session to do a demo and go into more detail on this later. And thanks for listening.
I'd like to welcome Doug Hoppe to talk to us about Data Practitioners COP.
I was actually prepared to thank somebody for introducing me, so thank you, Room God. But also Don as well, so I know Don over here, so I'll thank him as well. So about, midsummer, there was another Unconference that maybe some of you went to. It was the Social Data Research Unconference. Just kind of a show of hands. Did anybody go to that? Did anybody hear about it? So a few people did. There was actually a pretty good group of people there as well. Probably not as big as this one, but not too far away. And actually, I didn't know what to expect with that one either when I went there. And I was so pleased that I went there because it had such a diverse group of people from all walks of Stanford there. I come in from an administration area. I'm from UHR. But I saw, a lot of, it was probably weighted more on the academic side, so I got to meet a lot of people on the academic side. So, one thing that I was sitting at a table similar to this, and I was talking with people, and we were just talking about data and data projects and things like that we were doing. And we had so much common ground, even though we were just doing totally different things. So we decided to have a breakout session to talk about a COP. And that was really what formed what we're calling now the Data Practitioners COP, Community of Practice. So we had this session, and actually we went through kind of a process in the section where we did Post-its. Of course, we want to get ideas out there and put them in Post-its, and we were categorizing and all that stuff. And what really came out of it is, one, there was a lot of people that had common interests, and they varied, with applications and tools and even policies like data security, data sharing, all sorts of things. And so that kind of formed a COP that we really want to, we're kind of speccing as kind of all things data. So, if you're involved in collecting, analyzing, structuring, presenting data, it probably falls into some realm of what we are thinking about within this COP. We came up with a theme, which is this. So you can see that this is relatively broad, but it's what we want to do is really be kind of a place where we can have a collaboration of knowledge and best practice and data sharing, that touches, a lot of different realms of data, from architecture to analysis to consumer. So that's what that's what this COP is about. We started it again, basically off that Unconference session, but really we started kind of organizing probably a couple months later, and we've already have 18 school or VP organizations represented. So that's about 2/3 of Stanford already, that somebody in those organizations is part of this. And we're really excited to really open up this to anybody who's interested, who has some sort of work or passion around, the world of data. The world of data at Stanford is probably not an easy thing to grasp because there's so many different aspects of Stanford, but a communication or a community and a collaboration space for this, I think, will kind of help things. And there's so much knowledge in Stanford in this area. So getting people together to talk about things, whether it be specific applications or policies or whatever, this will be a place that we hope to do that. So we also intend to have a breakout session during this Unconference. The best way to kind of get involved is a couple things. You know, either subscribe to our mailing list, and you'll get more information about that if you attend the session. And we also have a website. So I got time, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doug. I'd like to now welcome to the stage Max Stoaks to talk about GSB Mobile. Max?
Thank you. I can't do it, sorry. All right, great. Well, so about this summer, we're doing some custom mobile app development at the GSB, and we were looking around. There wasn't a lot of information that we could find in the community, so I thought I would share what we're up to, what we've learned so far, and what we're thinking about doing next in the hopes of maybe making some connections and fostering some additional discussion. So let me start with what it is that we're up to. We're actually building 2 separate apps. One of them is a hybrid mobile app. It runs on a framework you might have heard of called Cordova, which allows you to develop mobile apps using web technologies. It's kind of a wrapper that runs on the device. There's some magic plugins that you can get. One of them is Salesforce, which is something that is one of our technology pillars, makes it easy to connect to Salesforce. So we can use that to connect directly to our Salesforce. And this is a mobile version of a desktop custom Salesforce application using the hybrid technology. And then the other one that we're working on is called GSB Go. GSB Go is a mobile first, so there really isn't a desktop version of this. It's a native application, so it runs directly on top of the platform OS. And it talks to our API.GSB layer, which is a sort of an enterprise data layer, which then takes a lot of this data from different places, and the idea is to aggregate and correlate data. So it's a little bit of a broader approach. So 2 different apps, 2 different architectures, which brings me to the first thing that we learned. So there are lots of different ways to do apps. So we spent a lot of time looking at what's the right way to do it, how should we do it, man. And then we decided that there really is no one particular way that's the best way for every possible type of mobile app that you want to do. And that's kind of reflected in what we're doing. And in fact, there's so many different ways, and anything from just a browser-based app, which is a fine approach, all the way up to native and variants in that whole spectrum. What we found is that the native approach, we really wanted that for GSB Go because it offers sort of the smoothest experience in terms of UI. It's native UI, users kind of know it, so hopefully you're using those widgets that people know. Direct device access to all the underlying functions on the device. But on the other hand, it's pretty tough to develop. It's not cross-platform. We have to do it for both of the main platforms, Android and Apple. And it uses some skills that may be not as common. Whereas the hybrid approach is, I think it's faster to develop. It runs on multiple platforms sort of out of the box, sort of. There's a little bit of tweaking to do. And there, hopefully, you can leverage some skills that you might already have in-house, okay? The other main thing that we learned was that developing the app is really only part of the battle. So you've got to think about things like design. You've got to think about deployment, authentication. And on the design side, Apple, is much different a design philosophy than, say, Material from Google. something to think about, especially if you're doing native deployment. It seems straightforward to get an application on a phone, and on Android it's not too bad, but on the Apple, in the Apple world, we found it to be a little bit more challenging. So make sure you keep time for that. And then on the authentication side, you know, we've been spoiled with the great plugins that we have that work with WebAuth. That doesn't always work on mobile, especially if you have an API layer that you're developing and you have to be able to authenticate throughout the entire call stack. So that's something to think about as well. And there's others, but these are the two that I wanted to highlight. And just to wrap up, what we're thinking about next is, of course, we're going to develop these apps, add more functionality. In the case of JSP Go, add more data sources to correlate and aggregate data. But we realize that this is an emerging space. There's a lot of stuff going on. So this is kind of almost like a bonus learning, if you will, is to keep your eyes open, because there's a lot of stuff. I think there's so many applications already. There's stuff happening in conversational UIs, in virtual personal assistant stuff, wearables, just the general IoT thing that's happening. I think it's going to offer, or does offer, a lot of interesting ways to engage with our students and our staff and faculty. So we're trying to keep an eye on that. And then that's pretty much it. So I'm hoping to make connections. If people are interested, please come up and let's chat. Thank you.
And now it's time for our second batch of lightning talks. Please welcome Markus Muetschard.
JavaScript-driven IoT. You think this is an aspect, and it's actually an aspect of IoT with an attitude. What kind of an attitude? Let's look. So the definition of the IoT is everything that has an IP address ready to connect to the internet and wants to talk to everything else that has an IP address, and it involves most of the time microcontroller programming. And JavaScript, as we know, is already more than 20-year-old and standardized language. And real programmers use what language? That's a discussion. You know, when I grew up with languages, it was real programmers use Fortran. But, you know, so that's probably another topic. When we go to the web and do some Googling around what others think about which language you actually should practice, it depends very much on what the goal is you want to do. If you are an institution and want to sell classes, you end up with the left ranking, which is first SQL, then Java, then JavaScript. If you go to the real people, the engineers, they say, no, C, and everything else is just far down the line, especially JavaScript. As you see, it leads the pack as first, and JavaScript is last. But when we then look at the hardware, you wonder what is applicable or applicable here, and we know some, they already are in the market very broad and use some flavor of Java, some flavor of C. But then there are others, and the majority I'm here on the picture, they have JavaScript out of the box right away. And some others, they are coercible because you can reflash them and put JavaScript on them. Now, because it matters, JavaScript, for me, I know it, I like it, and there's a platform out there, why should I not use it? And then, on the way, learn some other things. So starting with what I know in the technology gives me a foot, but I'm aware that because I have a hammer, not everything is a nail. But not having the wrench yet should not prevent me from starting. So let's look at some JavaScript. And as we know in languages, Hello World has a cousin, and that's called Blink. How fast do you get some device blinking? And very simple in JavaScript, you see the bottom 3 lines, which say a status variable changes its state every half cycle, and then is written out to some light-emitting device or LED. And this is done with the set interval, the JavaScript construct that's already available in the browser. So now I have a little movie that I want to show you. If you don't want to type, you can actually start and drag and drop with this Blockly. It will generate you then the code, and you will see how it will run. On the right-hand side, you see a little small dongle. That's a 32-bit machine that's then connecting over the over USB serial, and this platform, this IDE platform, will upload the code, and then start the code. And in the left side, you see then the things happening in the console. So connect, and then run, and you have your blink. And I tried myself without having nothing installed. You get it below 60 seconds, even with installing the Google, the Chrome extension. Now, I made a little thing here. As you can see, the bottom is the blinking, and the top checks actually the switch which is on the board. And when the switch is pressed, it suppresses the blinking. The code that has been generated is available as well and is very nice for instructional purposes. Oh, sorry. Now, because you say, oh, let me go here, and now emulation is possible because it's JavaScript. So you go in your browser and you run your stuff in the browser. And for serious programmers, you have to know you need some modules because you cannot have everything in a single file. And modules are publicly available, or they are in a URL or in your local sandbox. So what I want to say is fire up your browser, get the IDE, connect with these things here, which they blink, and they can actually show the there are light sensing, and they can show you how warm it is, and actually it makes about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius from up there down here. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Markus. I'd like you all to welcome Ashley Tolbert. She'll be telling us about phishing training.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Ashley again, and I'm a cybersecurity analyst at Slack. And I'm going to tell you about how we implemented our phishing training program. So for anyone who doesn't know what phishing is, from the people in the room, I think you may have heard about it. It's basically a fraudulent attempt, usually through email, to steal information. So it's usually credit card information, username and passwords, things like that. So we decided to do a phishing training program because, number one, phishing was a huge threat for us at Slack. So if you look at the chart, you'll see that that area in blue shows that phishing consistently across every month is a large portion of our incidents. So we decided to do something about it. And we heard that in industry, they have this new simulation style training where users can be sent fake phishing. And a lot of industries had a lot of success with it. So we decided to go with the SANS tool and try it out. And we wanted to do it to mainly improve real-time responses to receiving phishing emails. So this is how we did it. So we have a tool where we basically can send a fake phishing email to the entire organization. So we send that email, the user then receives that email, assesses it, and then determines what to do with it. And then usually one of 3 situations will happen. The success scenario is where the user gets the email, realizes that it is suspicious, and then they forward over to cybersecurity and say, hey, this doesn't look right. The fail scenario is where the user opens the email, they click it, and then that user is then shown a page of training, which I'll show in another slide. And then that user retests in a quarter. If you succeed, you are succeeded by, you're rewarded by retesting in the next year. And then for the people who ignore or delete it, we don't know if they really fail or succeed, so we test them again in the next quarter. So this is the email that we actually sent out. It basically just says, hey, your mailbox has exceeded its quota, and we purposely made it suspicious. So it has bad grammar, The URL is bogus. It goes to bunnyfarmsareal.maildeliverysystem.net. So, I mean, we wanted to make it look as suspicious as possible. And that's because phishing emails typically do look a little suspicious. So then most people, I think, realize that it may have been suspicious. Well, I'd say about half. And then the people who did click on the link, this is what they saw. So it said, hey, you've been phished, but you've been phished by us. This is an authorized simulation training. And here are a few steps and tips to beating it the next time. And then this is how we did overall. So we sent out 1,530 emails. 544 people opened the email. 249 clicked, and then 97 people reported it to us. Now, 46% sounds bad, but we did choose to use the number of people who opened the email. So out of the people that opened it, 46% clicked. If we would have used the number of emails sent, it would have been about 16%. So that's one of our lessons learned for next time. And then about 18% of people reported it, which is the 97 out of 544. So here are some of the lessons we learned. Number one, do train and tell people everything you can about the program ahead of time so no one feels duped. Do you explain the purpose of it to management, tell them, about the growing impact of phishing across industries, and then reach out for feedback, because I do feel like users want to be able to put in their say of how they think the program went. A few don'ts are don't limit the timing and the training of the program, because phishing happens at any time. A lot of people will exclude like Mondays or Fridays or days that are busy, but we kind of did it at the time that we thought people would be kind of not really be paying attention, which was a Monday morning at 9 a.m. So also don't exclude specific roles or departments. So we chose to include everyone in the training, and I think that if everyone's included, no one feels left out and no one feels targeted. And then don't try the user's results with performance and evaluations, because I think it will be resented. We read up on it a bit, and that was one of the top tips that we found. And then my last do is to use gamification if possible. Prizes are great and everyone loves them. So if you can reward like the person who continuously does well, then that will work out pretty good. Any questions?
Like less suspicious phishing emails? Like if you're actually, like there's a current thing now with
Yeah.
people, faking Amazon email, making it look just like Amazon.
Yeah.
If you land on a page that looks like Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, so some companies do choose to make it very suspicious, and they'll like brand it. But so we read a lot about the legal issues with branding, and we chose to stay away from that. So we chose to make it pretty plain, pretty, I think in the future we'd probably throw something Slack related on there just to make it a little bit more suspicious. But if you put like Home Depot or Microsoft on there, then that's something to be careful about. And I think that's all the time I have. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. I'd like to invite Karl Kornel. He wants to talk to you about minding your froms and tos.
Plug in first, I think. Yep. Perfect. Oh. Okay. Awesome. Hello, I'm Karl, and I'm here to talk to you about email. Specifically, oh yeah, hold for applause. Specifically, I'm here to talk about all of the generic, miscellaneous, probably cron job email that your servers are generating right now. Where's that email going? Well, all that mail has to be going somewhere. It's probably going to root, but root at where? It might be going to root on your local system, which means it's slowly filling up your disk. It might be going to root at Stanford, which is actually a valid email address, which means it's filling up someone else's disk. Neither of these options are good. So where should you send it? Well, you could send it directly to yourself. But if you like a clean email box, that's probably not a good idea. Instead of sending it to yourself, you could send it to a mailing list. Yeah, that's also not a good idea. You see, sending a flood of mail to a single list impacts service for every other list on that server. And at some point, you will flood your list. So where do we send it? Well, the answer can be found in the recent Office 365 transition. Why not send it to a shared mailbox? A shared mailbox, it gives you a single email address, which you can access from Office Web, you can access from Outlook, you can access from IMAP. You get a work group to manage access control, and you get 50 gigs of storage space for all of your mail, all for free. Getting a group mailbox is really easy. You start by going to email.stanford.edu. Really hard to remember. You click on Email for Groups, you click on Shared Email, and then you submit a request. Once your request is approved, you'll get an email with your workgroup's name and instructions on what to do next. But now that you have your shared mailbox, how do you get mail there? Well, if you're running postfix, then it can do the address translation automatically, so that mail sent to root at your local server name becomes mail sent to your shared mailbox at Stanford. You can even have postfix change the from address for all the email it sees, such as emails generated by the applications that are running on your server. That helps improve user experience by giving email recipients a reply address that actually works. Now, I'm not going to go into detail here, but I do have these postfix snippets up on GitHub. If you use something other than postfix, feel free to submit a pull request with your configuration so that other people can see and use it too. And so, with your newfound knowledge, I hope to never see another flooded mailing list ever again. Thanks very much. Do you have to click anything? I'll take it. Awesome.
Thank you very much, Karl.
Good job.
I'd like a round of applause to introduce Linnea Williams. She's going to be telling us about design management.
This one? Oh, yeah, all right. So, no, there's lots of devices up here. Hi, everyone. My name's Linnea Williams, and I'm going to be talking about evolving a growing team with intention. So I work for Stanford Web Services, and for those of you who don't know us, we are a central creative web studio supporting content management platforms and products serving our diverse community. And what that means is we're making websites for campus that are accessible, that are secure, you're welcome, that are Stanford branded, and that are affordable compared to industry competitors. And we are now celebrating 5 years. So we now have 17 people on our team. On any given day, we're supporting 3,000 plus websites. We have 7 products that we've developed to help create websites quickly. And in the last about year, we have created 371,000 Slack messages. But what got us here isn't what will get us there. Right now, we are no longer a startup. We're in a different phase as a team. So for us to grow and scale, we need to make sure that we're effective and efficient in a way that maybe we weren't when we were still figuring out what we were doing. So to that end, we have 2 new programs. We now have a customer experience program that I'm leading as the manager of customer experience. Good one-to-one there. And we have David Tom, who's joined us from the Graduate School of Business as our manager of user experience and design. So I want to talk a little bit about CX management. This definition that you see may not be exactly one-to-one if you're accustomed to the industry standard, but this is how I think about it. Customer experience management is crafting how to best serve our clients, building strategies to deliver consistently delightful interactions. So for me, what that means is my job is to know our clients and understand the intricacies of their needs, to evaluate the services that we're offering to make sure that what we're doing is really what people want, and either to sunset things we don't need, to change things that need a little adjusting, or to add things that don't exist yet. And then also to look at our processes and our tools to make sure that we as a team are working really efficiently. It's very easy to have a proliferation of tools, and I think we are one of the teams that has that. So that's something we're working on. And I'm going to talk briefly for David Tom. David Tom, do you mind standing? And we can, there he is, everyone. So design management is about supporting design within a business, the business and its objectives, and the business's interface with the market it operates in. So David and I talked about this, and the way we're thinking about it is his job is to work with the team to reduce friction, those points where you hit struggle, where it gets sticky, so that we can deliver really great products to campus, so that we have standard methods for how we do design as a group, so that not every person has to be a designer to do good design work. And then also to make sure that we're having the greatest impact possible on our clients and for the university as a whole. And the thing about these programs is that they're interconnected. None of this stuff lives on its own. So we now have kind of 4 big heads to our Stanford Web Services monster. One is customer experience, me, user experience, David, and then we have a technical architecture lead who can't be here. He's in Canada, but he's awesome. His name's Shay McKinney. And then our DevOps lead is John Bakar. So we're going to be working together to make sure these things kind of all go forward in concert. And that's a challenge that we are excited to face. So some of our recent efforts, we've been evaluating our processes, things like how do we launch a website, what emails need to go out, in what order, or how do we onboard a client? Let's look at this more closely. We've been simplifying and standardizing how we're doing things. So for example, we now have a standard way that we document what a project is. We have something that we call our project charter, and it has a lot of great sections in it. You can fill out what makes sense and then move from there. And I'm calling this simplerizing. We used to do what we called enhamplify, which is enhancing and simplifying, but I think at this point we need to start simplifying and standardizing. So it's enhamplify is out, simplerize is in. And then the other thing we're working on is automating. So one of the things that we have some great tool users on our team. One of the things that we started doing is having a standard way that when someone requests a launch, it goes into a calendar and into Jira for us to assign. So making that much simpler for ourselves. The way we're thinking about this is that we're co-creating non-prescriptive solutions. So we're working as a team to figure out what works best, but it's not a requirement that you do it in that way. It's a starting point, so that if there is something that needs to be done in a slightly different way, it can be. So that's kind of how we're thinking about all this. What's next for us is the reason I'm up here. I don't just like talking about myself. I do a little bit. We want to talk to all of you. So, we've been doing a lot of thinking about how we're doing things and how we can make our processes move more slowly, but more slowly. That's the wrong way. I'm going to call that dyslexia, although my boss tells me that's not how dyslexia works. So we want to talk to you about what we can do to serve the university better. So how can we make what we do most valuable to you? And for some folks, we're going to be actually doing listening tours, reaching out. You may see surveys, but if you don't see those things, I especially want to hear from you. I want you to tell me if there's something that you would like us to know. So I'm Linnea at Stanford.edu. David's DL Tom at Stanford.edu. Don't be shy. Come talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linnea. Our final lightning talk will be brought to you by Kim Sierra. Kim will be telling us about Kaltura at GSB.
Yes, I will. Okay, so at the GSB, we are using Kaltura. I'm super nervous. There's a whole lot of you. Okay, so we're using Kaltura for video distribution. What I'm going to do is give you a little bit of our story, where we were, where we are, where we're going. So we had a lot of video products before we got Kaltura. When I started being involved in this about 5 years ago, it was Uyala. We then moved on to Bright Cove. And then for a brief period of time last year, we had MediaCore. The thing that these things had in common is, in addition to having those tools for distributing video, people were still having to use Google Drive, Vimeo, YouTube, email. I mean, any way they could come up with to distribute their video, because the products that we had really weren't user-focused. Admins, you had to be an admin in order to upload a video. So we were looking at this thinking, we need something that we can put out there and it can be more self-service. That's a screenshot of what MediaSpace looks like. That's Kaltura's front end. Okay, so before Kaltura, like I said, multiple video distribution points. People were putting their video anywhere they could and grabbing the link to it or embed code and putting the embed code wherever they could. Only admins could do these things, and analytics was involved also. So people were distributing their own video, but they didn't have any way to see how their video was performing. There was no Canvas integration, so they were using Vimeo and YouTube and some other things to get embed code and putting videos in Canvas in that way. And it was super hard to discover video and find it and reuse it or repurpose it, so there's also a lot of duplicates out there. After Kaltura, we're now mostly standardized on a single platform. All of our video is making its way into Kaltura. You can imagine that's a big project because it's everywhere. And it's taking a little while, but we're getting there. Our marketing department is still using YouTube for public-facing marketing videos, and I don't see that changing. That's a really great platform for them, so they're going to continue there. Kaltura is set up so that any GSB user can upload a video and share it. It works a little bit like YouTube in that you can create a channel and you can make your channel private, so you share it with just a closed group of people. You can make it open, so you're sharing it with everyone at the GSB, and then it's discoverable. We have Canvas integration, so John Thompson is super happy. He's out there somewhere. Right there. And then we have already, so we implemented in May. Kaltura is a much bigger product than any of the products that we used before. There's a lot of configuration, there's a lot of options, there's a lot of things that you can do. So it's taking a little bit longer to get it implemented and out there than we originally thought that maybe it would. But already we've got people who are jumping on. The MBA program has got several private channels that they're using for things like video introductions. So when MBA ones are coming in, they record a little video of themselves and they can share it with their fellow classmates. But those videos are private to just their incoming class. Academic administration is using it to share highly private videos among faculty. We've got a few more use cases, but those were the ones that I thought maybe I'd highlight. So upcoming, supposed to be yesterday, but it looks like it'll be next week. We're going to enable the captions module. And what this means is people don't have to ask us for captions, IT, for captions anymore. They can just order captions. If you're the owner of the video, you can order captions. And when the order processes, the captions just show up on your video. And you can also have the ability to edit those captions because, you know, those things aren't 100%. So that's coming. One of the challenges that we have is sharing videos with external users, people who don't have a SUNET ID, because we've put Kaltura behind single sign-on. How do we share this with somebody who doesn't have a SUNET ID? So that's a challenge that we're facing, but Kaltura has offered a couple of different solutions that we're looking at. And then the next big step for me is more user engagement. So take it out to the rest of the departments and the staff and really drive up some business for it. And that's it. This is me. If you have questions or want to talk about video or Kaltura specifically, reach out. Let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim. Congratulations for making it all the way through the IT Unconference. Woo! Here with your executive summary to send you on your way is Brad Immanuel.
Thank you, Peter. There we go. I cannot believe the energy that you have all walked into this room with. My God, like this must have been I'm like ready for a nap. So good deal. So this is the wrap-up. I want to thank everybody for coming back out and actually showing up for the wrap-up. We were betting whether we'd have between 7 or 8 people, but this is cool. So I'm going to do a quick executive summary and then get you on your way so you can get out on the wet roads before everybody else does. Today was amazing. I don't know what you guys thought about the different individual sessions and things. I walked around a whole bunch of different sessions, and I am absolutely impressed by what has gone on again 6 years running. We haven't run out of things to talk about here at Stanford. We had 48 sessions go on, 48. That's a ton. We had over 400 or almost 400 participants. I don't know what the official count was. Almost 400 participants in the thing, which is amazing. That's like nearly 500. So 1,000 people came out today. We want to thank everybody for doing that. Just for rent. There we go. You're right, of course, exactly. And undercounting. Our pollsters really did well again. So, what what kind of really stands out is the fact that so many people actually want to spend their day together, and it's not a holiday, it's not a vacation, it's getting to know each other, it's talking about work, it's talking about Stanford, it's how to do things better, how to become better practitioners. That blew me away, and one of the things that again stood out is the vibrant community of practice, community of practices that we have here at Stanford. There were sessions that were run by the UX COP, the Drupal COP, WordPress COP. There was an STLP class that came out and talked about potentially creating a new COP based on reimagining IT. The Service Design COP, I think, had 3 sessions. My God, I think you guys got the award. Way to go. And then there's a Data Practitioners COP, which I've never heard of before, but it seems like that's actually really cool stuff that they're doing. And out of those things, in fact, looking through the remote sessions, and about 80% of the sessions actually put notes into the website, so good on you. Those of you who didn't, feel bad right now. There's 2 new... We have notes in the wiki. Where is... There we go, Scotty. We need him. They're not. There's a GraphDB COP that might be coming up, and there might be a Reimagine IT COP as well. So just amazing that there's so much going on, and again, cross-functionally. These things don't always deal with our day jobs. They deal with the greater strategic issues, and it's amazing to see everybody. Beyond that vibrant COP system, there were broad subjects, and I can't talk about all of them. There are 48. You guys don't want to be here and listen to me that much longer. But some of the sessions, excuse me, it's been a long day for me too. Sessions had to deal with service delivery and service design. So there was walk-up locations run by the School of Medicine talking about how they're doing a very successful walk-up just over one building over that it even involved a walk-over to the walk-up, which was really cool. UXers COP provided a session on running service design working sessions and how to really get the most out of them. There was Baumgar, again, School of Medicine showed up again and talked about the remote hand system that they've just installed over there and how they're helping users without actually having to physically go to them. And then there was finally another service design one from the UIT service design where they talked about 1 year in. What did they learn? What's being successful? What's not being successful? And they even encouraged more people to get engaged with the service design COP that started up about a year ago, which is really cool. There were also cool new ideas that were being presented. Xu Shen, I think, had a couple of them, like infrastructure and automation with code. Michael Duff wowed the crowd, literally wowed the crowd, with looking at client certificate-based authentication, which sounds so amazingly geeky, but it's so exciting that there may be a simplified authentication method here at Stanford, and you're not putting in the same password on 75 different devices every time it changes. See, we're all right, man. So attended, it was awesome. Graph databases were great. Mo Bala is going to start up a new COP based on that. And so these new ideas are flourishing, things that will begin here, hopefully, and just take off and they go forward. There are also ones that dealt with challenges that many of us are having. Brian Young, where is Brian? Brian Young did this whole session on creating and managing visual style guides with Hologram and Pattern Lab and different things about how to manage those things. Lots of groups are dealing with multiple assets for their CSS and their design, and he's bringing solutions and having good discussions around them. There's big data challenges, which has some of the most mind-blowing things going on of operating on Stanford's current big data infrastructure. Anything about databases talked about Oracle, MySQL, cloud database design, security, mobile device printing was a big discussion. Like, these devices don't seem to be going away. People seem to still want to print, though, which is kind of ironic. But they're, how are we going to accommodate that here at Stanford? How are we going to use it with the current infrastructure? They discussed everything from free options all the way up to enterprise options and what we could do as a group. Text mining and others Cool solutions also, like Ken Sharp brought more from his lightning talk to integrate 25 Live in Drupal, which is probably, I got jazzed by that because how great would have an enterprise scheduling system be able to pipe out into a very user-friendly web interface. And he's giving away that information for free, so way to go, Ken. There's also a huge amount of person, account, workgroup data available from the new registry and how to go get that data so you can bring that in through the new API or through the registry API. And there is even a mailing list being spun up, registry API at list.stanford.edu. So go into the notes if you're interested in that. You need more information. Weren't able to attend the session. There's great session information. Technical sessions also, SAML, things like I can't even pronounce half the time. What you need to do, GitLab, which is the cool new code here at Stanford. Multifunction deliveries on the MFDs. I couldn't attend that one, but that sounded great about delivering from multifunction printers. So we went everywhere from code and development all the way down to hardware, which is wonderful. And then there were a couple really non-technical big dream sessions, which are really fun to attend, like how to get involved with information security, and really should you. Adam Todd led that. That was a really good session. I talked to a couple people who attended it, and it was well facilitated and brought in there, and what should you be doing? Like, what's your responsibility? And then one of my favorites was reimagining IT. And the STLP class led through a work group session. Like, it was kind of one of those things people walked in, it was like, oh my God, we're gonna have to do some work. But we had great discussions about if you could start all over with IT, what would you do? Where would you put this thing? How would you deliver it to Stanford? And there were some wonderful discussions, wonderful things that went on. The notes are a gold mine. I've been through almost every single one. There's tons of information. There's some that are, they look more like Q&A, and they look more like an actual like frequently asked question guide to their subject versus just, hey, we talked about this and we did this. There's others that are encouraging getting involved either through COPS or the Slack. Remember, go to the Stanford Community of Practice Slack. There are channels being built around those, and everything's coming out, you know. So the conversations will continue. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up. The conversations we're going to continue through next year. We're going to keep getting bigger and better. I think, again, it's just amazing to spend a day with you guys. I want to thank you. This was a wonderful Unconference. It was just so supportive, and you guys really brought it to us. I want to thank all of our sponsors one more time. All of our volunteers, if all the red shirts and black shirts could stand up and just everybody thank them. They've been here since way too early. And white shirt. We have one white shirt. Without this, meetings for months, literally. I mean, oh my God, how they did it. Way to go. Thank you, guys. And then finally, I have to say thank you to Room God. Peter Robertson, you did an amazing job. He's available for hire if you would like your voicemail recorded. So starts at very reasonable discounts, though. But otherwise, that's it. I want to say thank you. Go home. Have a great night. You can't stay here, though. Move on. Bye-bye.
This concludes your IT Unconference experience. We know you have a choice of conferences to attend each year, and we thank you for choosing the Stanford IT Unconference.